Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Shouting into the Void on what is a dark October evening for the two of us.
It's 5 p.m.
Yeah, no, it's 8 p.m. So it's not far off. It's still, and I think it's kind of relevant for this episode, but we'll come on to that. This is the weekly show video that we throw together on a whim, where we dive into episodes of Doctor Who, specifically the revived series from 2005. We're going in chronological order. So we've already gone through Series 1, Series 2, Chris Ferguson, David Tennant. Well, we're halfway through David Tennant. Halfway through? Yeah.
Yeah, we're over halfway at this
We
point.
must be over halfway.
Maybe the specials might maybe make a difference. But in terms of the series, we're over halfway through.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So that's it. We are over halfway through his second series as the Doctor. So we are now on episode 9 of series 3, getting closer and closer to the 3-part finale. This is the second part of the 2-parter that we discussed last week. This is Family of Blood. So we pick up where we left off. Martha's in a bit of a jam. Joan's in a bit of a jam. Mr. Smith, the Doctor.
I just got her name's Joan. You could say Smith and Jones.
Boo. Maybe
I make myself laugh.
That's the
10 out of 10.
That's it. That's the best episode. We can make the joke. It's fine.
Yeah, we end it with this episode.
Smith and Joan are in a bit of a predicament.
Yeah.
And Jones is
Joan and Jones.
Yeah. Basically, Mr. Smith has to decide, is he going to save one of them? Is he going to save none of them? Is he going to save both of them? In the end...
Is he going to shoot himself?
In the end, he doesn't really get a choice. So the Doctor has turned himself human. He is being hunted by this family, this alien family that have tracked him across time and space. He's disguised himself as a school teacher in 1913. And where we left off is some scarecrows have come to life. This family have found him and they're going to try and make him change. So that leads into this episode where he does eventually change. Spoiler alert. It takes some toing and froing
shockingly
of should he change. I know, the series has to go on. But there's some good stuff in between, I think, which we'll obviously come on to. So overall, and as a part 2, what did you think of the episode?
I bloody loved it. So good. This is my favorite episode in ages, I think. Yeah. I did note with interest it was like 41 minutes long. So I was like, oh, it's a bit shorter. And I think pacing-wise, it really does excel with that, ironically enough. But that's because it's a part 2. There's been a lot of setup, so it breezes along, I feel. This episode flew by for me. Some really great performances in there, some really emotional moments. Overall, I'm kind of satisfied with how the story kind of ends up going. There's a few little niggles of characters I'm like, yeah, but overall, this is my favorite episode, I would say, since probably Army of Ghosts around then. So easily my favorite episode of the series so far. I mean, I loved the last episode as well. I rated that quite highly, but I do actually prefer the second part. But as a part 2 to the story, it's a really great conclusion. As an episode by itself, it's really good as well. I had a lot of fun with it. Well, fun's the wrong word because it's quite sad. But yeah,
enjoyment.
What it wanted to do, I feel like it achieved quite brilliantly. So yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And yeah, I pretty much echo everything. I think in my negatives, which we'll come on to, I think there's a few personal things that I think, or not, to me, I'm like, I don't really care for it. But
that's
that
my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. And that doesn't necessarily mean this is a bad episode, because I did enjoy this. I enjoyed it more than the first part. I think, again, because I put in one of my notes, it's non-stop action from the start. Literally, there's like a previously, here's a quick, and then it's just go up until they get to the house, I guess. And then it slows down a little bit. But it flies by. I think the performances from everyone, except maybe one performance, which we'll come on to in the negatives.
I forgot we talked about that. Yeah.
I think it's excellent throughout, really. I think it is probably my favorite of the series so far. probably beats most of series 2. We're probably hitting Boomtown levels of rating, I would say. It's not quite there, I don't think.
There's no Celine in it, so it can't.
No Celine.
Compare.
It doesn't have the although two of that 4 TARDIS crew are now a bit dodgy, so maybe it's fine.
It's fine. We covered them before that.
Yeah, it's fine. Don't go back and look at them now.
No, don't.
Especially not one of them. Definitely not one of them.
No.
But anyway, there's none of that in this one. There's as far as I'm aware, pretty clean actors in this, and they do a pretty clean job, which I think is
now you've said it.
A fair yeah. Now we're gonna these are terrible. This yeah. So as per usual, we do 3 positive points and 3 negative points. Often or not, we sort of go over them, unless your episode's been pretty mediocre. Looking at you, 42. In which case we're pretty dead on. But I've definitely got a couple of extra positives, and I've probably got, I think, 1 extra negative, although it's nitpicky at best.
Same in mine, really.
So I'll start this week.
All right.
And it's the same as last week. It's Jeremy Baines, son of mine. And it's effectively this for the same reasons we gave it last time. I just think the performance in this episode from him is incredible. The fact that it can flip from being like taunting to sinister is a great credit to the actor. Just every line that he delivers, you're interested in, you're paying attention to, and a lot of them are quite memorable. You know, we've had reanimate. Oh no!
I'd forgotten about that. Like, that is such ADR, but I love it. Yeah. Like, I forgot he'd even said that.
It's because and we discussed it last week. Like, there are so many times when he could have been so like cringe. You know, it could have gone the wrong way, which I think there is an issue with that with Mother of Mine. When she laughs, I'm like, that's a bit too much. We're going to talk.
I've got an extra note about that scene.
Okay.
I've never noticed it before,
and
I can't decide if it's absolutely brilliant or ruins the entire scene for me.
Oh dear!
But that's an extra note, so it's
okay. We'll come on to that.
Not on my proper.
But yeah, I mean, so he could have played it like that. It could have been really campy, really over the top. But it wasn't quite there. Like, there was definitely the sinister undertone there, which makes it, you know, the best character, I'd say, in the episode. Definitely the most intriguing, or at least the one that you're paying attention to the most.
The things that man can do with his face.
I know, it's insane, isn't
it's
it?
When there's 2 moments for me. It was like, hello sir, do you like that, sir? When he's saying that kind of thing, like, that's great.
Yeah, when it goes really close up.
Yeah, when Mother of Mine's like, he didn't just make himself human, he made himself an idiot. And he's like, same thing, isn't it? And the little smirk, I'm like, how is your mouth going up that high on your face?
Because like, he can control his mouth while keeping it separate to his eyes.
Yeah.
So his eyes always look like sinister and evil, but his like mouth like shows fake feelings, like, because they're not his real feelings. But just an excellent performance, I think. It's a shame that he's only in this one story, you know, but there's no way they can bring that character back. Definitely
give him a redemption arc.
Yeah,
Make him a companion.
I mean, he is still out and about. He is still a Scarecrow.
He's suspended animation. You could undo it.
So he could come back. But
the poor guy in like 100 years who like takes that Scarecrow down.
I think I'd like to see the actor back in the show, because you could do that. That's happened before a number of times. There's no reason why not. But yeah, it's just me gushing about him is my number 1. So what is your first positive?
The Doctor punishing the family is my favorite thing. I bloody love that scene. When people like watch Dinosaurs on a Spaceship and the Doctor like leaves Solomon to die because he's like too far gone and stuff, and everyone's like, oh, that's so out of that. Ain't that's too dark of him to do. Like, do you forget like one of the most popular stories of Doctor Who? Because he just like, oh, it gives me chills. The fact that he's like, he was being kind, that's why he ran away. That's so awesome. The line, we wanted to live forever, so the Doctor made sure that we did, is my favorite line ever. It's so, that whole kind of sequence is so brilliantly written. I like that they chose Son of Mine to kind of give that monologue, because they almost didn't. Stay tuned for some fun facts. And yeah, like just the look on the Doctor's face, he's like staring down at them when he's like punishing them in all these really crazy ways. I love how that kind of all plays out with them, and the ironic fate that they get for wanting to live forever in the first place. It's just such a cool kind of moment, and especially because we've had this whole story where the Doctor's been gone, and he really does, well, he literally comes back with a bang because he blows up the spaceship. But that's like, holy shit, like it can get to that point sometimes with him. Like, you do not fuck with this man. Later, this woman. So yeah,
This
that
person,
whole sequence of him just, yes, this time Lord / Lady, depending. It's confusing. It doesn't matter.
This Gallifrey.
Nothing is canon in Doctor Who. Doesn't matter.
No.
But yeah, I've always loved that entire sequence. It just gives me chills every time. The writing of that speech over the top of it is fantastic. And just seeing the Doctor be so brutal in dealing with those people, it's definitely a standout moment for Tennant's Doctor for me as well. But just the story and the episode, it's so good.
Yeah, that's fair. I think whenever the Doctor is not evil, but like, I don't know what the best way, dark.
I'm not victorious.
Yeah, but like, no matter what, like whether that's Christopher Eccleston, David Tennant, Peter Capaldi, Matt Smith, Jodie Whittaker has some moments. You know, I like seeing the darkness that's actually inside that is kept hidden away a lot of the time, and it's used so sparingly that whenever it does make an appearance, it's normally very good. And so just in this one, like, he didn't have to do that. He could have just like trapped them and just let them die, but he was like, no, I'll keep you alive, but you're going to be in prison for, I think, I mean, the one that was like dropped into a black hole, probably dead now.
Yeah, they said like she would remain there forever, but I'm like, that looks like she
black hole works.
Crisp, you know?
Yeah. I mean, maybe the chains guy is just wriggling around on the floor of that corridor
that would
somewhere.
Suck, wouldn't it? Forever, just.
I think the chains one is the worst, and then obviously the girl in the mirror is the best fate to get.
If I had to pick, I'd rather that one.
Yeah, because I wouldn't want to be stuck to a frame.
Because I don't have to look at my reflection.
Yeah,
it's everyone else's nightmare, not mine.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for agreeing with that. That's very kind of you.
I do agree that all of it, that whole sequence is very good, especially as we've just been sort of reintroduced to the Doctor as well, and we haven't seen him at all pretty much this whole story except for flashes in montages. And that brings me on to my next point. David Tennant.
What?
I know.
To be fair, that's one of mine as well. That's my third one. So.
Yeah, I think definitely more so than last week. Like him in this episode makes me think that last week I was like, oh, he's not as good last week. He's much better this week because he has more to do. The script gives him more, and it's just the performance to show the emotion, I think, of John Smith, and to make you like not want the Doctor to come back because you're like, that man is going to die. The Doctor's going to kill at least one person in this story. But then it's that conflict that you have, that that he has to return because he has to save everyone. And it's just from everything from when they're sat on the bank watching the TARDIS at front of the school to David Tennant in his old man makeup with his big bushy eyebrows. I think when he tries to
the first of Joan, 2 times this season, that kind of thing.
When he tries to convince Joan to come with him in the TARDIS, I just think all of it's very well delivered. Pretty much similar to Baines, is that they're both 2 actors that are on their A game, I think, in this episode, and every scene that they're in, they just steal the scenes. And if there's one complaint, I probably would want more interaction between the 2 of them. I think that's something that maybe we missed a little bit, but that's what it is. We get a little bit as the Doctor towards the end, but there's not going to be a big drawn out conversation between the 2 of them because we know what they want, so there's no reason for them to have a discussion. But yeah, David Tennant in this one is probably the best this series so far. Could be the best of the series, full stop, because thinking about what comes next, I don't think he doesn't necessarily get much to do in the finale, ironically, because it's
Certainly not next week.
No, next week obviously they're not in it, so it'll take something massive for him to be the best one. It'll be a negative because he came up with the phrase timey-wimey. That's going straight in the negative column. That's fine when it came out, but now I'm fed up with it. It's been ruined. It's going in the negatives. But yeah, I don't think David has anything sort of any other major scenes this series to sort of show off his acting range. I think this one was really,
apart from I guess when the master dies.
Yeah, I guess, but that's still one scene, whereas I think this range was sustained.
Yeah, I agree.
Across like virtually a half of the episode. And if it was a film, I could see it as an Oscar nom, if I'm honest, because it is that level of performance, which is incredible. Where's
his Emmy?
One day, I don't even know if Doctor Who existed in terms of the Emmys by the time. Like they didn't even pay attention. Like, no, that's fair, unfortunately. So what is your second positive?
Well, this was my third, but to echo yours, I put David Tennant, because I just wanted to add on to that. I will say early on in the episode, I do have a few like niggles with the performance, but it's tiny. And yeah, when it gets to like the angst about him having to change and stuff like that, he is on the top of his game. Easily his best performance in the series. I might go as far as to say I think that's my favorite performance of his in Doctor Who, those scenes. So he is really fantastic. When the material gives him stuff to work with, he's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And yeah, just I think what works so well about it is because you know where the 10th Doctor kind of ends up going and stuff, and he doesn't want to change, and he gets a bit of an ego going. He's a bit vain. I feel like this story is kind of perfect to tell with his Doctor, and I think they certainly make the most of that in the material that they give him in these scenes, because you do see such a stark difference eventually between the two Doctors, and even as soon as he's like, okay, yeah, I'm back, I'm the Doctor again, that moment he's like, oh wow, yeah, that's like completely different kind of switch. And I like that he's able to do that. And you just need some acting chops to really make this story hit home. I mean, the idea itself of the story is always going to be one that resonates, I think. It's just such a cool idea. But David Tennant just elevates it even further, particularly in this episode. So yeah, overall I think he is really phenomenal in this.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think the only other time maybe his acting could reach is maybe for Midnight, because because of the sheer amount of work that has to go into that episode.
Yeah, in terms of physicality, I think that would be up there. Yeah,
but yeah, I think we haven't seen this scale, I don't think, previously. Even when sort of Rose left, it was subtle, whereas this one was proper. Oscar trying to get the tears are going, crying, I'm going to get my Oscar kind of performance, kind of thing, which is great. I love to see it. And then it also kind of leads me on to my last one, is the sort of emotional weight towards the end of this episode. There's very few moments in Doctor Who where you can you feel for the characters, and you feel that emotion.
You feel anything?
I mean, maybe, yeah.
Why do we watch this show? I don't feel anything.
Yeah. But you have that probably once a series, maybe. Obviously, last season would have been when Rose left. This one is obviously for John Smith having to make that choice, but then we also have it with the Master in the finale. But there are very few moments in Doctor Who where you feel sad. Is sad the right word? I guess it is, because you do feel upset for the character, especially when they have that flash forward of what his life could look like. It's just the whole weight behind that is a different kind of. It's like a more adult emotion than just feeling monsters fun kind of thing. It's drama rather than like a family TV show kind of thing. Which I think Doctor Who always does try and hit in each episode, but more often than not it'll fall to the more family friendly type of thing, whereas this one, in fairness, when you're a kid you probably don't realize how hard that hits home, and then when you watch it older you kind of think, oh shit, that's pretty emotional and I'm on the verge of tears. How is this happening?
Yes, I'm going to cry.
Yeah. but because when you're a kid, you only care about the scarecrows and the explosions, which this episode does have. But when it's the adults and you're watching it, you want the depth there, which this has in tons. And that also means that, you know, David Tennant helps that. I think the actress who plays Joan does help that as well, as does the Tim Brody Scatch, whatever his name is.
Brody Never Aging.
Yeah, him. Tim also, I think, helps a little bit towards this.
Thomas Brody.
Oh yeah, Scatch, yeah, that one. Thomas.
Him.
Tom playing Tim really helps this. I think he does. He chimes in exactly at the right time with his speech about what the Doctor is. The speech that has been used in countless fan-made trailers and montages because of how good the delivery and the writing is. But yeah, I just think that the emotional stuff in this episode definitely hit home, I think, more than it has done previously, which is a credit to the episode. You know, you always want to go into it and positively feel something different than what you thought you would feel. So I guess this might be a reverse.
As the credits roll on Orphan 55.
Tears. Oh, she just wanted to see Benny again. Oh, I don't think that's going to happen somehow. But hey, it's going to be like 15 years until we get there, so maybe.
It's true. We'll have the 16th Doctor by the time we get to that. So.
Yeah. But yeah, just the emotional weight behind it is sort of my final positive. So what is your third but second?
Yes, it's a nice segue, really, because speaking of feeling things, mine is the ending, the remembrance service scene right at the end. You know, Tim kind of surviving, dragging Hutchinson through the mud, not in a bad way. And yeah, just when it cuts to him as an old man, he still has the watch. Dr. Martha, they have the puppies. I got very teary-eyed watching that, because again, like with you're older and stuff like that, you know, I can remember now. I mean, not when this aired, because I'm just like, yeah, I guess that's nice, isn't it? Is it nice? As my family cry around me, like, yeah, but Scarecrow's there.
What are you crying for?
Yeah, but you know, then you have, you know, the next year I went with my granddad to the Remembrance Day service. I wore his medals. He got really emotional about it. Turned out to be his last Remembrance service. So, you know, watching it now, you're like, and it just really hits home. And I think scenes like that can show the power that sci-fi can have as a genre and that Doctor Who has as a show. Not many lots of shows could have a Remembrance Day service scene in there. But for them to see him faced with, you know, the Dr. Martha, these people who like saved his life and like gave him that kind of will to carry on, gave him that watch, just the symbolism behind that, the emotion that he has that support from these people who travel time and space, but they make time just to go to a service like that for him. You know, not many shows can capture that kind of exact thing. I think that's why, you know, sci-fi as a genre lives on and Doctor Who kind of still remains. For how long? We'll see. But yeah, I just, it's a very emotional kind of cap to the episode. You could have easily ended it with the Dr. Martha like hugging, going off, and like, oh well, that was good fun. But I like this kind of little epilogue, wraps up Tim's character quite nicely to see that he ended up okay. And yeah, I just like that it tied into something that a lot of people will recognize and feel an attachment to. So I think that's another reason why I think this episode really hits home with a lot of people, because it does tie directly back to a very real life thing. So yeah, it's a really beautiful ending to cap off the episode, I feel, especially because there was talk with Baines earlier and he's like, oh, do you know what's coming next year? War, you're gonna die and it's gonna suck. So to end on a kind of like a proud celebratory moment about it is a nice kind of contrast because the villain's been defeated and stuff like that. So I love how the episode ends off. It's very emotional. Yeah,
I think that's definitely fair enough. And that, but the emotional beats just effectively, as soon as they hit the house, it just keeps coming throughout the end of that series.
They don't stop coming. They don't stop coming.
Yeah, literally. And you're just a ball of them. You're just a mess on the floor by the end. Oh. Yeah, I do really like it. And it's there's potential there for a big finish. You never know. They could get Tom back in and do a here's what happened to Tom after the war, and then make it like him and the Doctor and Martha met a number of times throughout his life, which I think would be a nice thing to do. But maybe that's something more for like one of those children need book special things that they do.
Yeah.
like the lockdown. What's it? But yeah, I do think it is a very lovely moment, and I always thought it always just struck me as, oh yeah, that episode came out around November, around the time of Remembrance, but it didn't. It came out in June. So I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's completely out of season, completely.
Back when Doctor Who
yeah,
consistently aired its seasons.
yeah. But yeah, so it's just, I guess that's the Mandela effect of me thinking, oh yeah, that would come out in November when it clearly didn't. But yeah, it is definitely a nice moment. My sort of additional positive is the music again from Murray Gold. I think, especially in this episode towards the end, it really again adds to the emotion throughout the whole thing. You know, even like at the start when everything's kicking off, it just, the music throughout this has gone amazingly well, and it just says a lot that Murray Gold can consistently pull out these bangers, basically. And I think definitely like the second half of series 3 is better in terms of music than the first half. It does seem like he's gone, oh, I know, I'll come up with this theme and start putting it in the episodes, whereas the previous one, it wasn't there. I don't know why that's all of a sudden appeared. Maybe I didn't notice it before, but it's definitely adds to the episode, I think, with this one, but it's not overbearing like sometimes it can be. So have you got any other positive points?
The sequence where they shoot the scarecrows, the music in that, speaking of the music, that whole sequence, when I went into the episode, I was like, oh, that's probably gonna be one of my positives. I really like that scene. And I realized how short it was. I was like, okay, maybe I can think of something else. But the actual kind of sequence itself, I think, is so well done. The shot of the kid like wiping his tears, he's like getting ready for them to come out. So I love that whole sequence. I think it's shot really well. And then of course reanimate. I'm just like, shoot them again. Spare you some time. But I love the whole fight sequence. I think that's really, really great. So yeah, that's my extra little one.
I'd say I think like we limit ourselves with 3 positives, but there's just so much in this episode that I think is very good, that it might feel like we're skipping over a fair bit, but you know, we limit so that we're not here for hours.
It's 1 hour, please.
We try and keep it around an hour at minimum now. We can't just keep going on, but I think it's just overall a lot of this episode is pretty good, you know, from the dialogue to the cinematography to the acting, the music, the pacing. Everything is the set design, although similar sets, and it's pretty basic, you still feel like it's that time. The costumes, you know, it's all excellent, and you know, I really like this episode. However,
that being said, let's pick apart everything we've just praised.
We do have to come on to some negatives because that's the nature of what we do here. Although we can change it anytime we want. But
one of these days, it will simply refuse to do negatives. I have one, and that's it.
So my sort of first one is I'm still not, and this again for me, I'm still not sure how I feel about Joan. Because I like their relationship, and you know, and I feel bad for her that she's effectively losing, you know, her boyfriend's effectively dying the same way sort of her husband died. So it's I do understand the character, but I just don't think she's nice to anyone other than the Doctor. Or sorry, even Mr. Smith, because I think when the Doctor comes in, I think she's horrible to him as well. And I can kind of get that, but I think it's unnecessary to sort of portray her as someone that, considering she's supposed to be a matron, and she does have the moment where she's like, oh, I need to go and help them. That feels very much like it's my job, I need to help them, rather than out of the goodness of my heart, I need to go and help them.
They do put a spotlight on her when she's not always great, you know.
And there's obviously the casual racism as well, which I can't attribute necessarily to the character as much, because that's the time.
I can when she ends up buying into her boyfriend's an alien who's changed into a human, but she can't believe that Martha's trained to be a doctor.
And then she's like, oh, I don't believe you, I'm just going to leave, goodbye. It's like, okay. So I think that's sort of my main problem, is that she seems like she's not a nice person. She seems fine with John Smith, but with everyone else, she just seems like she doesn't like anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't know if it's the writing or the way it's acted, because I do think the actress is great in the role, and I think she does a really good job with the role, especially with the more emotional stuff. But she also obviously didn't want to be aged up, which is why they only shot the scene with over the shoulder.
You just see
It's
some
probably not
strands
her.
of her hair.
Yeah,
in the corner. No,
probably not even her, and it's probably just ADR over the top. But yeah, I just think she's a bit underwhelming. I think in this episode, she's very much sort of there to tell John Smith that he needs to do this thing rather than anything else. Yeah, and then she's terrible to everyone else, but it doesn't take away from the episode, I don't think, because she's one character and I get most of the motives and I get most of the reactions. Just don't like it, which I think is fair. But yeah, so what's your negative?
Well, speaking of Joan, the Doctor inviting her along, I've never liked it and I never will. I think it's very forced. I think it's a bit out of character for the Doctor to ask her. I think because this is literally his first conversation with her as the Doctor again, because she's like, oh wow, you look the same. So they haven't spoken before this. And he's like, hey, come with me. Martha had to work her ass off to get a companion status. This is your first conversation with this woman. And you're like, hey, come along. And I just feel like after
what a sleaze bag.
Yeah, talking to Rose in school reunion, like, oh, you can spend the rest of your life with me. I can't spend the rest of your life with you. And all of that angst. And he's like, not over her and stuff. And he's like, because that's a deal with the first few episodes of the season. Yeah. And now he's like, oh, we can give it a try. I'd like that. I'm like, would you though? You don't know this woman. You've never talked to her before. No. It's never sat quite right with me. I think I can understand the sentiment behind it. Yeah. I'm sure he just wants her to feel a bit better about the situation, maybe, and just give her an offer or something. But I just don't buy that he'd want her to come along and that he has those feelings for her in that way, because he makes it so clear that these are two distinct people. So yeah, I've never really bought into that, and I just think it's a bit of a weird character moment for him. So yeah, I'd rather he just well, bye. Sorry, bye.
Never went back. Just left.
Yeah, just if he tried to make amends with her or something.
Yeah, it would be more in character for him to just leave than it would to go back, I think. At least that's what I've had, because he went, bye Donna, and then tried to leave. Like, oh, I'll be back, and then just pissed off in the Christmas special. So why wouldn't he do that here?
So he's like, well, I could change back. I'm not going to change for you.
Yeah.
However, you give up your life and come with me.
Yeah.
It's just a bit like you want to be with her, but you don't want to actually be the person that she loved. And it seems a bit messy to me. It feels like it's just an excuse so that we can get one final scene with Joan to wrap up the character. Yeah. And we need to kind of address that. But I just feel like him inviting her along just never felt quite right for me in terms of how the story plays out.
Yeah, that's fair. I think if we'd had more moments like that with the Doctor in the past 3 series, it wouldn't feel too out of place.
Yeah.
We had Adam, but he didn't make the offer. That was Rose that brought Adam along. He made the offer to Linda, but obviously she died.
Yeah.
But I guess he didn't necessarily make the offer to Jack. He kind of sort of picked him up. So he did it as Eccleston, but then he hasn't done it sort of as David Tennant.
Well, he asked Donna and she said no.
Yeah, but that's the new, outside of the main
companion. She just healed him really from just losing Rose, and he'd asked Sarah Jane to join him again, but she's Sarah fucking Jane. They have so much history and stuff.
And Mickey invited himself. He wasn't necessarily invited.
Yeah, he was like, I can use a laugh. He's not like, we can give things a try, Mickey.
Yeah,
we can be together.
And then you can argue that Martha was invited along because Donna said that he shouldn't be alone, so therefore the next time he does something, he's like, hey, you want to come with?
And because Martha called him out on his bullshit.
Yeah, and then also the guy from 42 from Watley Road, he would have made a good companion, but he doesn't get a look in at all. The Doctor's love interest.
Just what the story requires him to. There's just a few moments in the story that I feel like this feels more so like this is what the writer wanted to happen rather than what would actually happen in the story for me.
Yeah, which is fair enough. So speaking of things that happen in this that aren't very good, the performance of Daughter of Mine.
Oh,
Um, we're here again with
I
child
feel mean,
actors,
but
right? Because child acting is hard, obviously. Acting is hard, obviously, but when you've got Tim, well, I don't know if they're the same age. He always looks like he's 12, so maybe they're the same age. But when you've got this young actor being really good, and then you have another young actor not being very good, it stands out even more, especially when they interact with each other. But it's not make or break. I think Daughter of Mine has like 2 lines, so it's not like
yeah,
she has to deliver a speech. And she delivers most of them fine. There's just a couple of moments where it's a bit over the top, I think, because she's probably trying to match the same styles that the other members of the family are going
it's
for.
basically like what could have gone wrong with Son of Mine. I feel like in a way,
Yes, yeah, definitely.
it's not as nuanced.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, because she's trying to keep the sort of dead eyes, but everything is everything is yeah.
This little girl is dead inside.
Yeah, but it is because everything is
A damning indictment of this poor child.
It's blank. Everything is blank rather than just the eyes, like with the Son of Mine.
Just draw a face on the balloon and be done with it.
Yeah, exactly. But it is what it is. Like I said, she doesn't have that many lines. I don't think it definitely doesn't take away from the story or anything. I think Daughter and Father of Mine are probably the least used in this.
Yeah.
But one of which has significantly more iconic lines. Than, I think he only has like 2 lines. Doesn't he?
He doesn't have much either. No.
He says they found the TARDIS. He's like, "Come out!"
He stands outside the TARDIS for the whole episode. Oh, what a man!
But yeah, so that's, and again, when you're putting like this woman that has a hysterical laugh, this man that's really sinister, Father of Mine has the accent, which I think sort of helps. There's a lot you need to do to also stand out, and I think, unfortunately, the standout of that character is the balloon. I mean, it is like, if you think
of the book.
If you think of Daughter of Mine, you will think girl with a balloon. You won't think, oh yeah, really creepy performance. You just think girl with a balloon. Whereas you think, Father of Mine, you think accent. I guess Mother of Mine, probably not much there.
Time to end it now.
Oh yeah. I've got that written down. Yeah, that. And then obviously Baines is just
everything.
The whole performance. So I don't want to be unnecessarily harsh because, like I said, it doesn't really impact
but she's dead.
But
she's dead inside.
But I don't think it was the best performance. It's not the worst child performance we've had.
No,
in the show by far.
Strongly.
And we'll see how Crete does in Utopia, but he might not fare much better either.
Yeah, and I can't wait for the ginger kid and Dr. Win in the wardrobe because my
God. Oh no, that
Maurice.
All of that episode negative. There's nothing good in that. Yeah.
Positive, Bill Bailey. Positive, Matt Smith. Negative, rest.
Positive, guy from Pointless.
But negative, underused the guy for Pointless.
Yeah. Only in a plane. Negative. But yeah, it's definitely not the worst child performance we've seen. Probably not of this series either. But again, we'll come on to that in a couple of episodes' time. But unfortunately, in an episode with everyone pulling out the stops, especially other child actors in this, I think it falls a little bit flat.
Yeah, Crete is the one who won the Peter competition, isn't he?
Well, that's it. And so he's not really a trained actor.
They have a great track record for those.
Oh, at least that one wasn't too bad. And that one, I guess, Crete.
And then they killed that child and made him a photographer. So.
Exactly. Crete has
what a coincidence.
More of an arc, I feel. Whereas this one, we've met the girl, and then maybe that's about the character. We met the girl. She gets got. Daughter of Mine has 3 lines. He was with. I saw him talking or whatever. But never mind. It's fine. So what is your next negative?
God, yeah. I'm getting so into everything. I feel like we almost covered it all, but we haven't. Now, this is such a tiny little one, really. But I do think it's a bit of a cop out that he's just like, oh, ventriloquism of the nose, so you didn't check I'm human.
Ventriloquism
That
of the
is so
senses.
like, I was like, come on now,
Yeah.
come on, surely something else could have been done here. So it's that kind of slash. They make it so obvious that he's pressing the buttons on purpose.
I mean,
And
yeah,
they zoom in.
but when I first watched it, when I was a kid, I didn't see it. But
well, that's because you're dead inside, like all of mine.
Yeah, obviously.
But I think, I have no problem with that being the solution. That's like what he's doing. I mean, it's very handy that they have big ass buttons on the walls for him to bump into. Very, very coincidental. But I just like with like the Doctor Falls when they do like he does it and then zoom and enhance a bit later on. It's like this is what he was actually doing.
Yeah.
They could have been more subtle about it, is what I'm saying in hindsight, because we approach these episodes in hindsight. So that's why I'm critiquing it now.
Yeah.
But there's just a few like the build up to the Doctor saves the day and he's back. I feel like they could have done a bit more with it. I mean, the nose thing bothers me more than the buttons thing, but I kind of just put them together.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
And again, it's a tiny little thing.
Yeah, my third negative link comes off of that as well. Is I'm kind of disappointed that it descended into cliche. Hey, we're blowing stuff up. Come and stop us. I was like, I'd much rather have preferred a personal confrontation in a well-lit room rather than some than one in the spaceship where they've just descended into your generic we're blowing stuff up kind of thing rather than
this will draw him out or it will blow him up.
Because then what's like what is the threat for them? Is it just they have guns, they have explosions? Is that the threat of this family? Because I know that they say like, oh, there'll be devastation or whatever if you don't go and confront them or stop them or if you give them the Time Lord. But then it's like, what? So that's just explosions and guns. Like, I'm sure there's hundreds of thousands of alien races in the show that have guns and explosions that the Doctor doesn't interfere with. But just because they're chasing him, I guess they need to be stopped. I don't know.
They feel a bit too generic for someone that the Doctor had to become a human to avoid, really.
Which is a shame, because I think up until that point, they're definitely an interesting villain, or at least Son of Mine is an interesting villain. And maybe this kind of links into it was just the gas that came out of a little globe in the first episode. It's that aspect of it's a bit cheap. Maybe they only had a certain amount of time at the school and they ran out and they went, oh, well, guess we're filming this in the spaceship set. However, I do like when the Doctor's like, oh, better run. And then like there's the really like zooming on his face. It's like, run. I like that. But yeah, it just feels a bit like, oh, so they're just monsters with guns, which they had guns, but now it feels like they're just a bit too.
Their ship has been blown up. Oh, they've stopped. They've been stopped now.
Yeah, like when they had the guns, like they kind of used killing people as to have an impact. With the assistant head teacher, they killed him to make a point to the headmaster. They killed the headmaster to make a point to the family that the girl was evil. It feels like they've killed for a point at this up until now, but now they're just like, well, we're just going to kill everyone. Which is fine, I guess.
Fine.
But yeah, so what's your third negative? I've got some more nitpicks, but nitpicks.
Mine is kind of a collection of nitpicks, really.
Okay.
I've kind of just put a few little character moments or what they've done with some characters that I felt a bit off with. So don't get me wrong, I love this episode, but this isn't going to be kind, folks. This isn't going to be pretty. For me, when John Smith kind of wakes the school up, rings the bell, and he's like, everyone get up. And, he's like, oh, headmaster, we've been attacked by Banes and stuff. For me, David Tennant felt a bit too much like the Doctor there. He used his Doctor voice, really.
Okay.
And I'd have been like, okay, well, he maybe is aware of who he is now, so it's kind of a mix and a merge. But then they have the scene where he only does that when he's holding the watch. So it's like, okay. So for me, that's the only performance-wise. Otherwise, David Tennant's fantastic, obviously, because he's in my positives. But I just felt like he wasn't John Smith enough in that moment. He kind of really lost the accent a lot there, but he gains it back later on after that. Tim is born with telepathy. How convenient.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up if you didn't.
Yeah, and then when he runs away, he's like, "No, you're as bad as them." And then the next time he gives the speech about, oh, he's wonderful. Like,
Yeah.
where's that jump? Because all you've seen of the Doctor is all the terrifying shit that scares daughter of mine away. And you're like, oh, he's wonderful. I feel there's a weird jump there because he's like, I'm sorry I ran. I was just so scared of the Doctor. And then his very next line is the speech about how wonderful he is. Yeah. And I'm like, there's not quite the consistency there. For me, that just came across as they knew Tim needed to bring Martha the watch. They didn't know what to do with him until that point. They planned it all out from there. So they just like, oh, I'm scared of you. You're bad as them, and run off. Like, it would have been so easy to just, he got cornered by some scarecrows. He needs to run away and then come back a bit later. Yeah. But instead, they just do that. It felt a bit off to me. So there was that. When Joan was like, John Smith wouldn't want those boys to fight. The John Smith I was getting to know, I feel like he would want them to fight.
He was training them to kill in the last episode.
Like, and he's like, oh yeah, go and beat him up. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, I think she was wrong. I feel like she said that because the script knew that this guy was actually the Doctor and that they knew he was going to be the Doctor again. And they knew that when it came down to the fight, he wasn't going to fire the gun and he was looking like, oh shit, this is bad. But before that, I think he would have been in the mindset like, yeah, those fuckers are going to fight because I woke them all up to fight. So Joan, please. So there was that. I felt a bit weird. Yeah. And as much as I do appreciate what they were doing with the, oh, look at what our life could have been, they don't explain why that really happened. Like, I know they both touched the watch and stuff, but why does that watch show a potential future? It's like all about the Doctor's past, and it's like, it's the Doctor's past, not John. It felt very forced to me just to get an emotional response, and it works.
It works,
yeah. It's just there to make you feel bad for them, really. But they just don't even explain it away. They just don't explain it. So a few little things like that. It just feels a bit manipulative on my part. But again, that one I can really excuse. The rest of them, I do have issues with. But again, they don't necessarily take away from my enjoyment, but it's just as a collective whole, it feels like I'm moaning a lot, but I wanted to put them all together so I didn't sound like a nitpicky prick, if you catch my drift. I'm leaving the call. No, I'm not. I like puns. So yeah, there was just a few little moments like that for me that I was like, really though? But again, it's my third of my 3 negatives. It doesn't really bother me too badly.
Fine. No worries. I'm going to be a nitpicky now. It was a big gamble on Joan's part to go to Daughter of Mine's house.
Could you imagine it's getting shot as soon as they're there?
Well, I was like, first of all,
here we are.
First of all, how do you know where they live? Secondly, what if the parents weren't dead? And then that also brings me on to, why did Daughter of Mine go and kill her parents? Why did she go back home first? I get Baines going back to the school because there was still time to sort of build up to he had to get information. So did Mother of Mine, but Father of Mine didn't go back to tending the fields, and Daughter of Mine, that's his life. You never find any information. They're not really there. He just dies tending this field. And then Daughter of Mine gets taken, but then she gets taken is it last? I think the
last that we see, yeah.
So she's only possessed for 4 hours or something, as for Till the Dance that evening. So I don't know why she went back and killed her parents, and I don't know why Joan just assumes that would be the safest place to go. I think and that kind of leads into they've had 3 months sort of there, but everything seems like it's happened in that three days, which is the problem of having a show. You're not going to be dropped into the boring bit before the action, are you? You're not going to be dropped into those first months, unless you're the Walking Dead series 2.
So
don't need that one. Just get rid of it. You don't need them just sat there. It's my only problem with the show is you don't need them just sat there. Just
Are you sure?
Pretty much. It's the only problem. It crosses multiple seasons because other times they just sit there, but they don't need to just sit there. That's what happens with TV. You can choose what to show. However, I do think they miss some things here. It's not, maybe they have a line of saying, "Oh, I'm also the child doctor of the child nurse of the village." There's only a few, maybe something like that. Is it? It's not pediatrician, is it? Is that feet, or is pediatrician? Whatever child doctor's called, because there are specific ones for that. You could just say that that's why she's based at the school, but kids from the village go up and help as well, and that's how she knows the family, and that's how she knew to go there. And then maybe you could have had more of a reaction when the parents were dead, rather than just, oh, they're dead, knew they would be, kind of thing.
They're dead, yes, so to hide.
They've left some food, yes.
Oh, let's heat up that tea.
Yeah. So, you could have had more of a reaction saying, oh, I know, we can go and see the Cartwright family, and see how they're doing, coming like, oh no, they're dead, have a moment there. But again, it kind of plays into the fact that Joan doesn't really care for anyone else. The fact that she's so coldly, like the tea, just went, they're dead, good, we can use their base. So that's some nitpicks which are fine. And then I also thought there was quite a few montages in this, particularly the Scarecrow montage. Oh, how many times do you want to see him walking? I was like, oh, okay, just fading in and out with each other. I was like, oh, they've got a lot of extras in Scarecrow costumes there. And then obviously there was the couple when the doctor's thing's shown and it flashes back and it shows you all of the doctor and always doing all these things, kind of thing, which we had a lot of in the last episode, which for the audience I don't think is necessary, but it's fine. They're just things in there to pad the runtime. I mean, it's 41 minutes long, so I guess it's not really padded, but
yeah, and a minute of that is the previously.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all of my sort of nitpicky bits. Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things I like. It's like it kind of explores the consequences of the Doctor arriving at a place, which I think they kind of do much better in series 6. Obviously, with Matt Smith's Doctor and the impact he has on everyone and kind of things. But it's a nice sort of hint at here. A big F for Mr. Phillips, the deputy head teacher, who was like, "Whoops, sorry."
I've got a fun fact about him as well.
Oh, also a big F to the headmaster, who was just trying to be a nice guy but got killed.
Well.
Also, I thought that just the thought of being chased by a scarecrow through that school, the way they like walk, run, I was like, please, for the love of God, I never want to experience that in my life. That would be horrible. Also, it was a very good timing from Tim to shine the watch into the air just as Hutchinson was about to get shot. Thank God he did it at the right time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's nitpick. There's always gonna be nitpicks about episodes. It doesn't matter how good it is. We're always going to find things to complain about, because as we mentioned before, no episode of Doctor Who is perfect, and not every episode has to be the best episode. But it just so happens that this probably is one of the best episodes.
Yeah. My extra little thing that I wanted to mention, I couldn't decide whether it's brilliant or horrendous. When Son of Mine's like, oh, run along inside her, and then Mother of Mine's like, the scarecrows are laughing along and they're doing this.
Oh.
And I was like, that took me out of it completely, which isn't ideal. I'm also like, that's kind of it, really creepy. Morbid, and I quite like it. So I'm still just like, I didn't put it on either list or anything or talk about it in the main thing. So just like, do I like that or don't I? Because it really took me out of that scene entirely, and I was just like, that's Scarecrow, because it's not like they're making any noise, they're just going. I'm like, well, I get that they're laughing. It just felt a bit strange.
There's a couple of, like, because I thought that I was like, there could be an interesting thing to do with this Scarecrow, because like Baines like says, "Good work, soldier," to the one that gets the gun off Martha at the start. And like, there might be like a dropped subplot of where these get, they're actual like sentient things that have like a ranking system or whatever, but like, because it seems like they're aware of it at least, but who knows, there's something there which ties in with the laughing, because then it shows that they can actually think.
I just thought of a joke. I'm sorry, it made me laugh.
Oh dear.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
What did the internet tell the production company when the first Sonic trailer came out? Reanimate!
Oh, God's sake. I was like, how does this go with the Scarecrow?
Oh, I went really lightheaded then. Oh, God.
God, this is why we don't record at night.
No, we can't do this at 8 p.m. ever.
But we are having a fun time, and the fun times are going to get funner with your fun facts.
They certainly are. Let's do this. Right. Okay. So, John Smith's Journal of Impossible Things was created by artist Kellyanne Walker based on text from Paul Cornell, which he provided. The brief was to reflect that John Smith wasn't a very good artist and he rushed to get thoughts and images down before he forgot them. But I think they're pretty bloody good.
I mean, yeah.
Considering
they do a whole thing in the first episode to be like, hey, look how good of an artist I am. Here's your portrait.
Yeah. So she went against the brief, if anything. But that was what the point was supposed to be. Joan is the third character in the revived series to decline an invitation to travel with the Doctor after Sarah Jane and Donna. But obviously, Donna does then come back next series. Russell T Davies believes this story ended up being too dark for the programme's target audience.
I mean, so, yeah.
I can see it. Yeah. It's not entirely wrong, but it's also good. So shut up. I mean, I love you. I'm glad you're back. When Hutchinson calls Tim a filthy coward, he responds, "Oh, yes, sir, every time." This was a reference to The Parting of the Ways, where the Doctor goes, "I'm a coward any day." They wanted Tim's character to feel very doctorish, so they added that line as a nod to it.
He's a doctor. Coward.
Okay. He's a timeless doctor, obviously. That's why he's telepathic.
Could you imagine?
Whoa!
It's not really him at the end scene. It's somebody else.
Yeah.
Giving the watch to him.
It'd be hilarious. Oh. In the original scripts, the narration of the family's fate was actually given to Daughter of Mine because she had the fewest lines in the episode, ending with her punishment of being trapped in every mirror. It ended up being switched to Son of Mine for unsaid reasons.
Bad acting.
Probably because they watched some takes.
They went, no, can't give her this.
Yeah, so it could have been quite something. When you were talking about like, oh, she didn't really have that many lines, it was like, well,
she's gonna.
Yeah, so I'm quite glad they ended up giving that speech to Son of Mine because he's the more significant one. Mm-hmm. A couple of things actually proved difficult for the production of this episode. They had 14 consecutive days of rain. And David Tennant also had some voice problems during filming. They didn't go into what that was. I don't know if it's bronchitis or something, but that was another thing that happened. So there you go. Consideration was given to make the story entirely without the use of computer effects, but that was ultimately abandoned. I would love to see what they would have tried to do with like what would the like true form look like without them being weird gas things.
Well, maybe they wouldn't have done it. Maybe
they just like throw glitter at them.
Yeah, because like even you could do it without special effects. You could have the Time Lord watch as like a Pulp Fiction suitcase-esque type thing where it's always facing them and it always, when it's open, it's just a yellow light.
They could have just waited for them to make the toy that they released of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But yes, there's that. The role of Phillips was offered to Nicholas Briggs, the voice of the Daleks, Sidemen, among others. He passed because the role was too small. So
sorry, Nicholas.
Sorry, Nicholas. But there you go. And the destruction of the Family of Blood's ship emulates a sequence in the 1987 movie Predator, including the noises increasing in pitch as the explosion approaches. So I'm guessing it was like a reference to Predator. Maybe Paul Cornell's a big fan of it. I don't know. But there you go. Fun facts.
Lovely. Excellent fun facts. So that brings us on to the last item of the evening, rating.
Yes.
Out of 10, what are you giving Family of Blood?
I'm going to give it a 9.
Nice.
I very much enjoyed it. Yes, definitely. I mean, I gave the last one 8.5, I think. I did prefer this one. But yeah, I loved like the pacing of it, the emotions behind it. I had a lot of nitpicks as we went into, but you know, they don't completely ruin the story for me by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's very well done. I think it's a highlight of the stories we've covered so far. I think it's a highlight of Tennant's run. I think it's a highlight of the new series. It's very bloody good. It's an excellent second part to the story to wrap everything up. It's just an episode, like an excellent episode of its own right. I very much enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think I'm also going to give it a 9 as well, which is a full 1 point higher than last week's.
Wow.
I think because, yeah, it's just overall, I think it helps that this is a part 2, I think. You know, because it gives you the final piece for the full story and it makes you appreciate everything a lot more, which is what a part 2 should do, but often doesn't necessarily happen. But you know, everything in this is pretty exceptional. The acting, as we mentioned, the design, the plot, the writing, we've got some issues, but they're nothing to take away because they're not major parts. You know, Joan plays a big role, but she doesn't really have an impact on the plot other than telling John Smith that he needs to change. That's sort of the only thing. And they could have easily written around that with having Tim or Martha just convince him. But yeah, just overall, an exceptionally good episode, a really good two-parter, which I'm glad we've both seen that it's good, and we haven't had a 42 moment.
Oh no, it's bad. Oh god, it's horrible.
Exactly. And hopefully we won't have a 42 moment with next week's episode, the infamous Blink.
Can't remember that one.
So, oh Christ, this one scared the shit out of me when I was younger. I'm gonna make a point of watching this at night in the dark to try and emulate how it was.
It's gonna be easy this time of year.
Yeah,
just wait
exactly.
till 4 p.m.
Yeah, but like with like no lights on, just the TV. I'm gonna try and like give it the spooky feel that it wants. So the episode sees not our companion or doctor, but Sally Sparrow investigating a house for reasons which I think we come on to in the episode. I can't remember. But there's some writing left, and they're like, it's like, oh, duck, what? And something throws at her, and there's a creepy statue in the garden. But you're like, oh, it's just a statue. They're everywhere. What's going on here? And yeah, this is the introduction of the Weeping Angels, arguably one of the scariest sort of monsters the show has produced. Definitely at the time, you could probably say they've lost their spooky nature in the intervening episodes since, I think. But we'll come on to them when we come on to them, because they have made a number of appearances both in the show, in spin-offs, in games, in live action exhibitions, which, to be fair, we both did go to the Doctor Who exhibition in Cardiff when they had the walk through foresty bit, and that was scary as fuck. Just because it's dark. God,
I don't subscribe to them losing their fear. I find them scarier in the two-part with Matt Smith, to be honest.
Interesting.
Because this episode, it didn't scare me when I first watched it. I enjoyed it. It didn't scare me until I watched Doctor Who Confidential afterwards, and I found out they were actual people in costumes. And for some reason, that really freaked me out that they weren't actually statues. I was like, oh, yeah. So that's what made me afraid of them.
Yeah. So it's going to be hopefully another good episode. What are your memories of it then? Obviously, you said you weren't necessarily scared of them. You big boy.
I know, right? So brave. I mean, I was terrified of Satan the previous season. For some reason, angels.
Satan, angels.
Once you've had Satan, it's just that's it. It's the worst of the worst. But yeah, I remember still quite liking it. I've actually watched this one fairly recently. I think when we kind of started this off, I think probably Blink was the most recent one I'd rewatched. Mm-hmm. I still really like it. So I imagine, I say with bated breath, but it hasn't changed too much in like the year or so since I first watched it. So I do normally watch Blink around Halloween time. So yeah, I'm excited to check it out again, because I know there's some good character stuff in there. I know the Weeping Angels are a fun, different kind of villain. And yeah, it makes me laugh that Stephen Moffat wrote this as punishment for not being able to do the Diet two-parter. And then this is how it played out. Absolutely hilarious. What luck.
Arguably, this episode is what probably gave him the showrunner role. I would say, he had a pretty good episode with in series 1 with the Empty Child and the Doctor Dances. Did he do anything in series 2?
Go in the Fireplace was his.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say
also
that's
well regarded.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say that's necessarily.
But for me personally, I don't see the hype with that.
Yeah. And then Blink was obviously really up there, as is Forest of the
Silence
Dead?
in the Library.
Silence in the Library and Forest of the Dead. That is also high up there as well. So you could argue that this is what sort of gave them a footing for the showrunner role. And yeah, I mean, I'm going to be interested to see how it goes, because it's a Dr. Light episode. Interested to see how
better than the last one.
Yeah, hopefully. Interested to see how well that policeman that flirts with Sally has held up in the years since this is coming out, especially with everything in the news recently. But we will see how that comes in. At the time, didn't think anything of it because it was just two attractive people chatting. I think if it wasn't reciprocated by Sally, it probably would be worse. But it's obvious that they both feel an attraction to each other.
And if he is creepy about it, he's immediately punished for it.
yeah, literally. But yeah, I remember
he dies in the same rain. So
I remember liking it a lot, also being quite scared of it. And I haven't seen it in a while. And it will almost be Halloween, effectively.
It's a good time of year to watch it. Yeah.
2 weeks before Halloween-ish. So not bad, even though this came out in June, the first time round. But yeah, so that's Blink next week. We will be back for that. Again, it's getting closer. They put a teaser out last week. There could be a Doctor Who trailer this weekend. So if that's the case, the schedule might get shuffled around a little bit.
I'm starting to think Series 13 doesn't exist, Connor. I must say.
Like I was thinking that, but then they did that weird teaser thing before Strictly on Saturday, which makes me kind of think that there might be something else this weekend, whether it's just another like teaser like that or maybe something more substantial. I don't know. But we'll see. We've also
I'm just starting to suspect they've accidentally deleted it and don't want to tell us.
yeah, that's all that was left. That one clip. There you go. There's your
they kept all the teasers they filmed for it, but the actual series is gone.
Yeah, maybe. Hopefully. No, I'm not that. I'm not that fan. But yeah, we'll see what happens. It wouldn't surprise me if there was something this weekend. And then also in 10 days' time, 9 days' time, that Edge of Reality game comes out. They also released a 5-minute clip of that today. I think it looks a lot better than what I was expecting it to look like.
It looks better than it did in VR.
Yes, yeah, which is fair enough because most VR games aren't very well done at the minute because VR is just too expensive to put any effort into. But yeah, so I'm sure we'll try and come up and discuss that once we've both played it, which I'm sure we will pretty soon after it comes out. But yeah, until then, we'll either see you next Wednesday for Blink, or we'll see you some point between then for a Series 13 trailer breakdown, reaction, review, whatever we want to call it.
Yes.
We'll find out.
Yes to all.
Depends what time of day and what day it comes out, I think. Depends on what we do. Because if it's at like midday on Saturday, I won't be about. So it'll have to be just a standard breakdown kind of thing. But it doesn't matter. Either way, we'll be back within the week to discuss more Doctor Who. Yeah. Bye.
Bye.